All right, so like I said, this icon here is called the application menu. So what the application menu does basically is just more like what every other application does in talking about Word, Excel. So what you can find in the application menu is you have your so inside the application menu, that's where you can create a new file, open existing files, do your save, all those normal things. But it now has an additional thing to it, which is this drawing utility. All right, so what you have inside the drawing utility, now this drawing utility is not particular to AutoCAD. It's not something you have in other software because this was made especially for AutoCAD purpose. So you can see inside your drawing utilities, you have your drawing properties. So you can have properties of your drawing. You can compare your drawing. So you have two drawings that you want to compare. You also, this is where you also choose your units. Remember I said AutoCAD allows you to work, it works with standards, right? So you can actually set either for your metric standard or imperial. So maybe if, so meaning if you want to design stuff to maybe millimeters, centimeter, you can actually choose those standards. So this is where you choose your units from. Then you have your audits. So these audits just check for errors in your drawing. Talked about that. So usually the audit is done at the end of the drawing. You don't want to do it while you are starting. It's when you are done with the drawing, you can now run audit on your drawings to be sure. Then you also have your status. So what the status does is that it shows you all the commands that you've run since you run AutoCAD for a particular session. So right now, this session now, if I run status, it's going to tell me whatever command I've run. Because I've not run any command, it's not really going to show me anything. It's just going to show me that, okay, I switch ISO A1. So remember when we were choosing template, and I switched from this to model. Remember when I was clicking explaining model? So it's telling me everything I did up onto the last section. So that's what the audit does. Sorry. So that's what the audit does. Then we have our purge. So what purge will do is going to look at a particular object or drawing that you have not touched for a while. So let's say I've been working on a particular project for like 2 hours, and there's one line that I drew that I didn't touch for like 1 hour, 30 minutes. If I do a purge, it's going to assume that since I didn't touch this part for like that length of time, that is actually probably an error. So we're just going to delete them. All right. So that's what purge will do. So it removes unused named items such as block, definitions, and all those things that you don't need. And also, when we get to layers, also there are some layers that are not attached to anything. It's going to take them off. There will be times you create layers. You've done AutoCAD, so you know what I'm saying. So you create layers, and if that layer is not used, nothing is in that layer, and it's just there. It's taking space, so it's just going to clean that. Then you also have your recover. And oftentimes, when you work with AutoCAD, when you work with large files, it always happens. AutoCAD will crash. It will just turn white. The screen will turn white, and you'll be waiting. It will just say, "Don't respond." Then the next thing, it will now bring one dialog box. Don't send message. It's telling you that it has crashed. But AutoCAD has this functionality to recover crashed files. But there is a catch to this recover. This recover will only work if you have done your save. So that means if you start your drawing and you have saved the drawing, that's when you can recover. But if now that I've started drawing, I didn't save, I'm just working, and it crashes, I can't get it. No, that's not even the thing now. The moment I open this drawing, the moment I start a new drawing, before I start doing anything, I need to save it. I need to save it with a name so that it is registered that okay, this project is saved. When I do that save, even before doing anything, then anything that happens, I can recover. Then you need to always save. Yeah. Leave the save. Then there is now another functionality which we are going to look at in the option where you can do autosave. So when you do your autosave, you can set the number of periods it should automatically save, maybe every 5 minutes, 15 minutes. If you forget to hit Ctrl S, it should automatically save for you. All right. So that's when recover can work. You must have that file saved. All right. So that is there. Then the next section you notice this thing that has all these icons. This is called the quick access toolbar. Quick access toolbar. So why is it called quick access toolbar? It allows you to easily access some tools. So what do I mean by that? Let's say, for instance, there is this tool that I use often, this particular tool. All right? I use this tool, but most of the time, I'm always in my home tab. So instead of me to be coming here and be clicking, I can actually click it from here. I can easily access the tool. That's what quick access toolbar does. If you look at the example now, you can see save. This is save, this is new, this is open. So this would have saved us few clicks. What I would have done was click one, click two. But I would have just done it click. Do you understand? So that's what quick access toolbar allows us to do. And if you click on this arrow beside this quick access toolbar, you can hide some things from you. Notice those ones that are checked are the ones you are seeing here. So if I check my plot will be added. If I check property will be added. And if I don't want it anymore, just remove this, remove that. All right? Do you have any questions so far on this? No. Esther, do you have any question? Yeah, me, I have a question now. So anytime I ask you, do you have any question, I expect you to ask me a question. I was explaining to you that I like using this tool. And most of the time I'm here. How can I easily access that tool? For instance, I'm just saying for instance, I like using this particular tool. I use it almost every time, often. And also, most of my time, I'm always in the home tab. So instead of me to be clicking, how can I have it here so that I can? So I purposely said that first. So I was expecting you guys to say, okay, that one, how can we put it there? So it's actually easy. I can just right click on it. If I right click, you're going to see add to quick access toolbar. So if I say add to quick access toolbar, it's going to add it here. So even if I'm here, I can still access it here. Toolbar. No, it's not. It's not. So I can go to another tool. So let's assume I like using convert to mtext. I can right click, add quick access toolbar. It's added here. So I can use them. No, it's this tool that I'm explaining currently. After application menu, I said quick access toolbar. Then if I want to remove also, I can just, it's still the same thing, but the other way around. Right click on it, remove from quick access toolbar, right click, remove from quick access toolbar. Right? Okay, so there is this name here, this thing that you can see drafting annotation on the quick access toolbar. What is it? It is called the workspace. So what is workspace? So what are workspaces on AutoCAD? Workspaces are just arrangement of tools in the environment, in the AutoCAD environment. So what do I mean by arrangement of tools in AutoCAD environment? Okay, how AutoCAD arrange some tools for the purpose of what you want to do. Remember I said AutoCAD software allows you to do 2D drafts and 3D modeling, if you remember, first class. That same software you can do 2D drawing, you can also do 3D modeling. And I told you that I was going to show you how you can actually switch from 2D to 3D workspace. So if you look at it right now, you see what we have here. I just have lines, shapes, circle, polyline. Those ones allow me to do shapes, create shapes, more of 2D line shapes. But if I come to this draft, this workspace, and I click on the arrow, You notice I have 3D basic, 3D modeling. So that means I can actually switch to 3D basics. And what I now have box instead of line. Now the lines are now brought here, and I now have the box, cylinder, cone, sphere. You can see that these ones are now geometries. They are forms, they are not shapes. So if you come here also, I also have 3D modeling. It's also a 3D workspace. But the difference between 3D modeling and 3D basics is that 3D basics are the 3D workspace for the people that use AutoCAD from 2010 backwards. So you say 2010, 2008, 2007, 2009, going backwards. So that's the workspace. But from 2011 upwards, this is the new workspace that they have. So it brings most of the tools out, those important tools. So now I need to point out these things. Switching from one workspace to another workspace does not mean that you are deleting those things. You are going to, all those things are still there. It's just that it's hiding things that are not necessary and bringing things that you need for a particular purpose. So you can see this place as an illustration. So if we look at this class now, you want to say, okay, you want to use this class for seminar. We can start to arrange it this way, right? And we have this. We can start to say, okay, we want to use it for a debate. And we'll have some panel of judges that will sit here. We have some chairs for those that will be debating and for the audience. It's just we are rearranging these things. We can say, okay, now we want to use this hall for a party, a dance hall party. So that means we are stacking all the chairs somewhere. We're having this for the DJ. Then everybody will have to stand and dance, you understand? Now, notice something. I've not taken anything out of this room, and I've not brought anything here. I just rearrange them to suit the purpose of what I need them for. So that's what workspace is all about. Arranging tools, when you're arranging them, there's need to hide some things and bring things that you need for that particular purpose. All right? So it doesn't mean that if I'm here in my 3D workspace, I can't still run those two palettes, I can't still run my line. I can still. It's just bringing those things that I need for this purpose, bringing them up. So I'll go back because we want to do 2D draft. So draft annotation is what we use for 2D draft. I have a question. Okay. It doesn't change. It just changes the icons you are seeing. It's still here, it's still there. So if I've drawn stuff with my 2D shape and I switch to 3D, my shape should still be here. It doesn't take them off. Eh? What? No. You have to do the work to convert it to 3D. So that's that. Then you have your title bar. So this title bar gives you the title of whatever file you save. If I save it with a particular name now, that's the name I have. Then coming down to this place, we have the information center. See this thing that says type a keyword or phrase. It's called information center. What's the function of information center? It is where we search for things. So maybe I want to learn about a particular tool in AutoCAD. Let's for instance, line. I can just type line there. Now this information center can work as online and offline. But for the when you run your command, it will initially want to run as an online based resource. But then you can make it offline if you download the offline job. Instead of it going online, then you choose the offline. So what I mean by that is that if I come in now and I say, for instance, and I press enter, it's going to tell me that what do I want? Online is not accessible. What do you want? Do you want to check access and try again or use the offline help instead? If you have downloaded the offline help and you have saved it in your system, I can choose offline, then it's going to tell me to navigate to where that file is. I can go to that file and I can start using it from that file. But if I'm connected, I can just say go online. Then it's going to take me to the online help and I can start reading everything about Circle. Do you understand? So that's what I mean by it can serve as an online or offline help. So delete that. Then this is where you sign in. Remember that Autodesk 360, so you have that there. So coming down, you have this long bar that goes from left to right, and you can see them, they are tagged up top here. These are called tabs or ribbons. No, I'm recording. It is not. If you have time, no. So we have our tabs. So we have our tabs. We have the home tab, insert tab, annotate tab, parametric tab, view tab, and so on and so forth. Right? So these are the tabs. So now the hierarchy to this is that tabs are divided into what we call panels. Now, maybe you read the resource online and it's not called tabs. It can actually be called ribbons. Yeah. So it's either you call it tabs or ribbons. So anyone you choose works, right? So tab is I can call tab very fast. That's why I like choosing tab, not ribbons. So, yeah. So but you can it's either you call it tabs or ribbons. So each of these ribbons or tabs are now furtherly subdivided into what we call panels or groups. You can see their name. So your choice of word is individual preference. So if you want to use groups, fine. If you want to use panel, fine. So tabs are further subdivided into what we call the panels. So how do you identify those panels? You notice there is this line separating a group of icons. That line is called a separator, and the name of the panel is written under. So this is a draw panel, modify panel, annotation panel, layers panel, and so on and so forth. So I can ask you, give me all the panels that you have under annotation tabs. So what are all the panels? Annotation tabs are divided into how many panels? Just look at them. It's divided into text panel, dimension panel, center lines, and so on and so forth. Do you understand? So I can also ask, collaborate is divided into how many panels? What are the panels you have under collaborate tabs? Share panel, Autodesk docs, traces, compare. All right? So you are getting it. Now, these panels or groups are now made up of tools. So you can see this as an engineer's toolbox. So inside the box, you have the tools that you use. So the function of those tools are dependent on the name of the panel. So what do I mean by that? If you are looking for tools that allows you to draw, go to the draw panel. So any tools you see inside draw panels are used for drawing. Am I making any sense? Any tool you see under modify panel are used to modify objects. So any tool you see under annotation panels are used for annotation purpose. For example, text, dimension, leaders, table, all those things. So if you look at this now, draw panel is now made up of line tool, polyline tool, circle tool, arc tool, rectangle tool, and each of these, some of them have an arrow. If you click on the arrow, it shows you that there are still some things inside. So we have our polygon tool, we have our ellipse tool, we have our hatch tool. If you click on this arrow under draw, there are still some more draw tools down here. All right? So I can ask you, give me 10 modifier tools. So give me 3 modifier tools that you can see here. Eh? Modify. This is modifier. So if I say give me modified tools, yeah, those are modified tools. So I can tell you, these 15 modified tools you know. I mean, give me 5 or 15 tools that you can use to modify objects. One of them is to move, to copy, to stretch, to rotate, to lengthen, to break, to trim, to extend, to explode, all those things. I can also ask you, give me any 5 annotation tools. That means text, dimension, leader, table, so on. Do you understand? All right. So that's the hierarchy. The tabs are divided into what we call panels, and panels are made up of tools. Then the tools are now what we use to draw or to do things in our interface. Now coming to the right here, you have this thing that has this compass, north, east, southwest. You can see there. This is called the view cube. And also, sorry, I forgot to mention something. You remember, it's very important in coordinate system. You remember in the coordinate system, particularly this relative rectangular coordinate system, where we have to start switching origins, right? Now, you know we always start from the base origin. We always start from this. This origin that is starting, which is on our origin, is called the word coordinate system. Right? So for every graph, when you start drawing your graph, that's first graph that I draw is the word coordinate system. So in the case of AutoCAD, it has its own first graph, the origin, which is the word coordinate system. So by the time you start shifting this origin from where it is to a different location, it changes from being the word coordinate system to what we call the user coordinate system. Because you have modified the word coordinate system. Alright? So that means when we are doing that L shape, we started with our word coordinate system 1. When we shifted this to here, we had our user coordinate system 1, we shifted user coordinate system 2. So every time you shift your graph, you are getting a new user coordinate system. Alright? It's very important. Then this guy that has this north, east, southwest, WCS, word, as in this word, this word, globe, word coordinate system and user coordinate system. So this is called the view cube. Now this view cube is used for navigation. So this view cube can help to, it's actually a 3D navigation tool. This view cube here, this guy, is a 3D navigation tool, meaning it allows you to go to your north, south, east, west, and also move around. So if I want to go, right now you can see it's saying I'm on the top. If I click on this south or the arrow on top of this south, it takes me to the front. And you can see that I now have Z and X. If I go back to the top, look at what I have. I have my Y and X. Remember, I told us that this graph, the Z is actually pointing at us. That's why we don't see the Z. We only see the Y and the X. So because I move this to the front view now, that means I'm now flipping this way. That's why now I now have the Z and the X. So I can also go to the side view, left. I can go back to the front. I can go to the right, okay, and I can go back to the top, and I can go to an isometric view by clicking on this home. So I click on this home, it's going to take me to the 3D view that shows me all the axes. All right, so you can now see the X, Y, and Z axis just because I click on this home. If I want to go back to the top, just click on this top. It takes me back to the top. All right, so that's what the view cube is used for. And you can notice under this view cube, what do you have? You see WCS. Because this is when we open this drawing, AutoCAD gives us an origin. Okay? So if we decide to shift this origin, we select this guy. If I move this origin away from here to somewhere else, so let me just click on it. And let's say I want to move it here. Notice what they say on me. Because we have now moved it away from where it normally is. All right, so please. Then you notice we have our new user, so we can take it back to the word coordinate system, it shifts back. Okay. Then we have our, so this is the view cube, like I said. Then down here we have the navigation bar. So this navigation bar is also a form of navigation, is for navigation. But in the case of this one, it takes both two different navigations together. So if you look at under the navigation bar, you have our steering wheel, we have our pan, we have our zoom, we have our orbit, and we have our rewind. So let's look at the first one. We'll come back to this steering wheel later. The pan. So if I click on pan, what pan will do is that if I click on it, notice my hand changes to this hand, meaning I can use it to grab my paper and move my paper. So it's more like I'm taking this paper and I'm moving this paper. So that's what pan. So I can notice as I'm moving, the origin is moving. So I'm not actually moving this origin. What I'm moving is the paper, the graph itself. So what do I mean? If I have a shape down here and I move, you would think what I'm moving is the circle, right? I'm not moving the circle because how do I know? The position of the circle is still constant to this origin. Right? So what I'm doing in essence is I'm moving the whole paper. All right? Okay. So that's what pan is used for. The shortcut for pan is P. So if I don't want to use this icon, if I press escape to stop every command, so anytime you run the command, you can use escape to exit. So if I don't want to click on this guy, I can use the shortcut P for pan. If I type P and I press enter, notice what happens. So I can still move. Escape. Then coming down to this, we have our zoom. So what the zoom does is it allows you to zoom in or out a drawing. So we have different types of zoom. Okay, so let me create some other shapes here. So I'll just use it to explain. You can see. So if you click on this zoom, we have different types of zoom. You can see you have zoom extend, zoom window, zoom preview, zoom real time, zoom all these things. So let's look at it. So zoom extend will bring all the drawings that you have, all the shapes you have in your drawing, bring them to you. So what do I mean by that? If I'm here, I'm currently zoomed here, and I do a zoom extend, all those other shapes is going to bring them to my screen. I'll see them. So more of bringing them to my. So let's just see that if I click on zoom extend, you notice everything, it brings them to my extent and I see them all. Then the next one I also have is I have my zoom to window. So what zoom window does that? It allows me to create a window over a section that I want to zoom into. So I click on zoom to window, notice what happens to my mouse. I have this magnifying glass that has this window. So it's actually waiting for me to click on an empty space. So if my intention is to zoom to this section here, this place, just click on an empty space and come out and click. It's going to zoom to that section. Right? That's what zoom extend, zoom to window does. Then we have zoom to previous. So zoom previous will take me to the previous zoom level that I was, or zoom factor that I was. If I go to zoom previous again, it still takes me back. Okay. Then we have zoom real time. I don't really use this, but it's there to zoom. So you are dynamically zooming. So I'm clicking and dragging up and down to zoom. If I come here, click, drag up, and zoom, click, drag up and down. So, but I barely use that. Then the next one you also have is zoom up. It brings everything to your view. So if I come here and I say zoom up, it does similar thing to zoom extents. All right, so you can see all of them. You have a whole lot of things to work with here. Then you have your zoom dynamic, zoom scale, zoom center, zoom object, zoom in, zoom out. So you can just check each of all these things. All right. So we have our orbit. So what the orbit is used for is to do a 3D movement. All right. So I'll just show us, even though it's not part of what we are meant to do for this course. So if I go to orbit, notice what happens. My mouse changes and also my axis here, my XY axis changes. So if I click, I can do a movement, a 3D orbiting. Right? So that's what orbit does. It's more like me moving around the shape, not in 2D space, now, in 3D space. That's what orbit does. So anytime you do your orbit, you want to always come back to your home. So when I press escape, you want to come back to your home, then go to your top. Right? Then you have your rewind or show motion. So what the show motion does that all the things I've been doing, is recording them. So I can always go in time or backwards. So if I click on show motion, so notice it shows me this icon down here. So I can start playing or recording things I want to do and not record. But then I will just close this and go to the steering wheel. Everything is in the steering wheel. So let me just go to the steering wheel and show us. So if I go to the steering wheel, which is the first one, you notice I have all of them here. I have the zoom, I have the orbit, I have the pan, I have the rewind, I have the lookup and everything, which we can't even find it. So that means in this steering wheel, I can zoom in, zoom out. I'm just clicking on that zoom. If I want to pan, I'll have to come to the pan, click and hold. I can use it to pan. I can go to the rewind, the first icon on this navigation. I skipped it, I just came here. I said I was going to come back to this last. So if you click on this now, I can do a rewind. So if I do rewind, I can go back to all the stuff that, so my system is hanging. So I can actually move back in time to all the command I've run. Can you see what I was saying? Okay. But because I didn't save this, so I can't recover it. Not all the time. Not all the time. Since I changed this to Windows 11, it has been acting up. They are working on it. It's in a better state. So let's just wait for this to. This is what I was saying. So once it crashes, it's going to come up and say send reports, don't send reports. So this is to let you know that it has crashed. So the next time you open it, if I had saved this guy now, the next time I open it, it's going to tell me that it recovered some file. So let's wait for this, and I can actually pause. Okay, so let me just come in and get rid of AutoCAD. It's not allowing me to do anything. Okay, so let me pause. Think. Let me stop